pointing out that D. O'Keefe wasn't mentioned. We certainly wouldn't want that slight. And also thank you for pointing out that we could use our high school yearbook picture, which is D. O'Keefe. To those of you complaining about the Boston location, we'll try and get you back to Worcester next. Congratulations to Sharon Thibault, Ed Zabin, very deserving recipients, and congratulations to Danny Bennett. Dan came to the Worcester County DA's office after a very successful career in both Middlesex and Suffolk counties, followed up by a very successful career as a defense attorney. Dan oversees all the prosecutions in the Worcester County DA's office and the Worcester Superior Court, and he mentors all of the ADAs within the office. Despite his heavy supervisor schedule, Dan handles some of our toughest murder prosecutions. Last year, we brought 6 murder cases to trial. We won 6 first-degree murder convictions under Dan's tutelage. Dan had 2 of those trials. Overall, since Dan has joined the office, we brought 12 murder cases to trial. The results have been 8 first-degree murder convictions, 3 second-degree murder convictions, and 1 manslaughter conviction. Not a single not guilty verdict, and I hope I'm not jinxing myself tonight. Most recently, Dan won a first-degree murder conviction in an 8-year-old case in which the victim had been stabbed and stoned. The jury was out for less than an hour. Dan twice also tried a case of random violence involving mental illness, to a degree. A man in Worcester knocked on the door of a home and stabbed to death the woman who answered. The first trial ended in a hung jury. We later learned it was an 11-1 for conviction. The case was tried again with the same result. After the second trial, the defendant pled guilty to second-degree murder to start the third trial. Last year, Dan argued for the conviction of a Fitchburg man accused of murdering his wife, putting the body in a large suitcase and discarding the suitcase off a highway. The case was right out of CSI. It involved an arranged marriage, an exotic dancer witness, I forget your kids, and a tape. Again, Dan won a first-degree murder conviction. Recently, in another domestic violence case, which rocked the Worcester County Courthouse, Dan won a first-degree murder conviction in the death of a courthouse worker in the Worcester Courthouse. One of the most notorious murders in Worcester County was the killing of a young man named Kevin Harkins, who was called out of a barroom in 1994 and was never seen again. Dan, working with detectives from the Worcester Police Department, was able to put evidence before the grand jury last year that led to murder charges against 3 suspects, and the case continues to move forward. I like to joke that Dan Bennett is the Babe Ruth of the Worcester DA's office. The truth is, he's got better statistics. And as good a prosecutor as Dan Bennett is, I know he's a better father, husband, and person. Danny, Johnny, Carolyn, and Maura, you're very lucky to have such a great dad and husband. Congratulations to Dan Bennett.
Sharon, I'd like to come on board too, but with the way he dressed. I looked up at Marion today and I said, Marion's up there, I'm up there, Cherry isn't up here. Who would bet that 6 years ago? Now, I know one thing. I have gotten more help from more people than anybody in here. So many people have helped me along the way. I definitely wouldn't be standing up here if I hadn't got that kind of help. Victim witness advocates, administrators, the state police Middlesex, the state police Worcester, the Lowell police, the Worcester police, the Sudbury police. Every case that I worked on, it was teamwork and people helping me that we were able to put on a good case. I see Major Conley out there. No one's got a harder time than the crime lab, and undeserved. Every time I've ever worked with the crime lab, they've done a fantastic job, and it's been great teamwork. I stole Jen Rado when I asked her to sit with my family tonight because of how much good work she's done and how much, when we've tried cases together, it's been important. Jen's kept it organized and Jen's kept it professional, and any success that we've had is a result of her hard work. Now, I looked out there and I talked to Jack Dolly today. And Jack's the first assistant in Essex. Jack gave me my first job in law. I was a student at Suffolk, and his brother Paul, who I knew, called up Jack and said, can you give this guy a job? And Jack did. And Jack's sort of symbolic of everybody who's helped me along the way. Because Jack saw that I had a different skill set than most people. Every other law clerk at White Anchor and Aronson was hired so that they could research and write. Jack read one thing that I wrote, and he said, this is not what this guy should do. So I got different assignments from Jack, assignments that I could do. Getting milk license at City Hall, getting certified convictions at the Brockton District Court. He took me to court for a divorce case, and then left me at Billy C's in Revere, a Chinese restaurant, with his client for 3 hours while I drank beer and she drank fruit drinks. He gave me a client that needed to go to a deposition in Newburyport. The poor woman had attempted suicide numerous times, and he advised me to put my convertible top down and drive over the Mystic River Bridge. But I did get her safely to the deposition. Now, I'm going to thank Jerry Leon, okay? Jerry has been one of my best friends since high school. I've known him over 30 years. Now, Jerry came from almost the same background as me. Fathers are high school football coaches. High school football coaches who back in the 60s believed that if you gave high school students water during 90-degree heat and double sessions with a helmet on, it was just going to weaken them as human beings. Now, I have all the respect in the world for Jerry, but I got to tell you something. Since he became a professional legend, I've heard he's brilliant. He's a genius. I've known the guy for over 30 years. And I'm going to tell you one story that's symbolic of the hundreds of stories I know about Jerry. We're seniors in college. We're going to fly down to play the University of Pennsylvania, okay, from Boston to Philadelphia. I've been on a plane once in my life, and Jerry had never been on a plane. We get on the plane, Jerry looks over at me and says, this is really stupid, flying to Philadelphia the day before this game. I guess, why is that, Jerry? He goes, we're going to get jet lag. He's one of the greatest guys I know, but he's not a genius. Okay, now, but I have to thank Jerry. He got me my first job at Middlesex in Lowell District Court, and that was an exciting job. And then when he became district attorney, he asked me to come back and gave me a job as senior trial counsel, which allowed me to try cases, and it really was the perfect job for me. So I want to thank Jerry for that. Even though he's not here, I don't know what happened to him, but he's gone. Now, when Jerry finished his first term, I got a call. And it was not from Joe Early to work out there, and I didn't call Joe Early for a job. So when he says it was mutual friends, he's absolutely telling the truth. And now that Jerry's gone, Jane Sullivan, Revere, it was Jane and Mark Sullivan who called the two of us up. And I think knowing both of us, they picked a spot where we would both feel comfortable, and that was Dunkin' Donuts on Route 9. And so I showed up, and Joe was there. And little did I know that was the last time Joe would get somewhere before I did. So I went in and I do what I always do when I go to Dunkin' Donuts. I order a number one. And that's a coffee and 2 donuts. And I remember I got a chocolate glazed and a chocolate frosted. And I sat down with Joe. For 45 minutes, I talked. And Joe talked. And we went back and forth and we discussed things. And some of it had to do with the law, and some of it had to do with trials, and a lot of it had to do with our families. And I left that Dunkin' Donuts that day, and I went home to see my wife Lauren. I said, Jesus, this is a great guy, and I really want this job. And she said, I'd like you to do one thing. Every time in your life you get a little information, you make a decision, and no matter how wrong it is, you tell everybody it's right for the rest of your life. So I said, honey, you're right. This is too big a decision. I'm not going to do that this time. I went back to Dunkin' Donuts. Met with Joe again. Ordered a number one. I did him the other time. I was much more comfortable with Joe then, so I ordered a jelly and a frosted flake. We sat down, and Joe offered me a job. And for once more, I was wrong, because I took it right away. And it's the greatest decision, professional decision, I've ever made. We have a great working relationship. It's great to work for him. He always says, show compassion and stay within the law. He's always trying to help kids. He's always trying to make a situation to keep kids out of trouble. I understand why he wants to make those baseball fields look good. And football fields, so the kids are out there. But he's really a better friend than he is everything else. And over 2.5 years, I think of Joe as one of my best friends. If Jerry gave me the perfect job, Joe gave me the greatest job I could ever have. And part of that is the people in Worcester County, the Worcester County ADAs. It's a professional group, it's a hard-working group, but most of all, sort of echoing what Sharon and Ed said, it's a group that's out for justice. And they show it every day, and I'm proud to be one of them. Now, the last group of people I'm going to thank are my family. Most important part of my life is my family. The kids, first we had Caroline, who was the 14-year-old girl sitting over there with the red hair. And Laura and I thought we were perfect parents. And then we had Danny and Johnny, and we realized we had nothing to do with it. And they're wonderful, and they're fun to be with, and they're all individual personalities. Caroline is a wonderful young lady, and Danny has a heart of gold, just like his mother, and Johnny is Johnny. We introduce him, and this just happened, we introduced him to Captain Leahy tonight, who's the head of our SPDU, and a good friend and a great person. And the first thing Johnny says to me, it'd be a bad time for a murder in Worcester. Now, Joe was concerned that the AOP's description of the different crimes would upset my children. But they hear me wandering around the house doing my closings because I can't write anything down. I have to memorize them walking around, so that was not shocking at all. But I was very excited about getting this award, very proud. So I went home and I said to Caroline, I'm going to be one of the prosecutors of the year in Massachusetts. And she said, that's wonderful, Dad. And I said to Danny, I'm going to be prosecutor of the year in Massachusetts, one of the prosecutors of the year in Massachusetts. And he said, that's great, Dad, I'm very proud. And I said that to Johnny, and he said, you know, Dad, there are 50 states. I want to thank him in particular because your children have to put up a lot with this job. There's lots of broken promises about you'll be at an event. There's lots of times that their phone rings at 3 o'clock in the morning and they're wondering where their father's going. And there's lots of times where they're trying to talk to you about what's going on in their life. And you've got your face looking at them, but in your mind, you're thinking about what happened in Rutland last night or what you're going to say in your closing. And so they get deprived of that. And I'm very proud of them, and I want to thank them for being good kids.